Today, children, we're not focusing on the bad, but we're focusing on the good. And the good interest is the interest that, let's say you have some extra cash you store away in the bank. It is the money you get from the bank. In other words, and that's how banks make their money. Okay, not only do they loan people money, but they'll also hold your money and they'll pay you interest for holding your money. But the deal is this, how do they make money? Well, they don't give you as much money to hold your money as they charge you to use their money. For example, right now, if you went to the bank with $1,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 and said, here, I'm gonna keep this in my savings account, I wanna say savings accounts are at like 1%. Why? Because house rates are so small at 4%. Okay, so the bank, where they make their money is this extra 3%. Like Nikki will give me, Nikki has $200,000, she puts it in the bank, she gets 1% interest, but the bank will take that $200,000, loan it out to somebody and get for themselves 4% interest. So the difference, the 3%, they get to keep. That's money that the bank actually makes for itself. So that's how banks actually make their money, is they give you a lot less than they charge. So Nikki Kyle, if she had $200,000, she should go loan it to somebody and charge 4% and make her own 4%.
The photographers will be leaving in 10 minutes. Please be sure that everyone who needed to have a picture taken has had their picture taken today. Thank you.
But the reason why Nikki Collins wouldn't want to do that is because if these people couldn't pay her the money back to her, she's kind of out of luck. Whereas a bank's taking all the chances, like banks were hurting so bad. That's why so many banks have closed. For that simple reason, all those people that borrowed money from banks, they couldn't pay it back to them. They were foreclosed. The bank kind of loses out because they'll never get their money back. That's why you hear a lot of times in the paper people say it was a bank-owned house. Well, a bank probably lost money because what they did is they just took the house back. They'll probably never make the money that they loaned somebody for that house. They loan somebody $200,000, but they can only get $150,000 for the house. The bank's the one that's going to take that $50,000 hit, even though it really wasn't their fault. So that's kind of the gamble that they take there. Nick?
I have 2 questions.
Let's make them quick.
What if you're paying a loan and then you switch your banks, and you still have to pay the old bank's loan?
Yeah, well, you're still, even if you switch banks, your loan is still through that bank, and they'll do it. Now, most house loans come through, you hear the words Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Okay, most banks, most people take those loans that they get from you and they sell them off to a mortgage company that actually specializes just in house loans. So there's a big game out there about who actually ends up with your loan and where your, Chase Bank has a lot, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, they're big housing lenders. Banks kind of get out of it a little bit because of all the stuff that's been going on, and they won't loan money, but you can get loans through banks from these other people. It's a terrible place to be right now, actually good and bad. Lucas, is that your second question? What?
So, she puts in this $200,000, but they can't pay her back. How does she?
Oh, they do. She'll get her money. That's why when you also go up to a bank, you'll see that a deposit is FDIC insured up to whatever amount. If you look, it's on all the bank windows. The government actually ensures that the money that people put in a bank will be repaid. That a bank will never collapse without being able to pay those people their money that they have invested in it back. They learned that, I believe, from the Great Depression or whatever that was when everything collapsed back in the 1920s or whatever it was. Federally Deposit Insurance, something, FDIC, something like that. Oh, Emma Haynes.
So, do banks still have your consent if they're going to sell your mortgage?
I think when you sign a mortgage, I think somewhere in the fine print it says your bank is allowed to do that. It's one of those fine print things. Most people don't care. As long as they've already got their money. They've already got the loan, so they don't care if they're writing the check to pay it back to your bank or to Freddie Mae or Fannie Mae. It doesn't matter because they can't change your rates. They can't raise your payments or anything. It's set. So most people don't care about where their money comes from because it's already been paid out. John,
The interest on a loan goes up, will the savings go down or up?
If banks could charge more, I mean, like back here, back in the days of 12%, a bank would probably be paid like 5% or 6%. It's very much tied in. Okay, the interest rates, as they go up here, you're gonna get more money, because a bank's gonna need more money, I mean, they need it there. I mean, your choices for where to put your money are where? If you have money, where do you usually put it? You're gonna put it, a bank is the safest place for it. Okay, if you got $10,000, rather than just keeping it, holding $10,000 in your house and not making any money, you know, you can put it in your bank and get 1%, which is what? 1% of $100 is 1, so $1,000 is 10. You get $100 a year just for putting your money in the bank. But where else can you put it? Huh? Besides keeping it at your house in the safe, where you won't get any money, what else can you do with your money? Lauren? You can buy stocks, and that's kind of where people have been for a while, but the problem with stocks is it's a
Gamble.
It's a gamble. If the stock market goes up, you're gonna make money, but if it goes down, you're going to actually lose money, and you could end up having less money than you had before. Or you can buy CDs, which are money that people take for community things and stuff, and you are guaranteed money for certificates of deposit. But the problem with the CD, when you buy those, they call them CDs, is you have to keep it in there for like 5 years or 10 years or something. You are saying, and you might get, instead of 1%, you might get 2% or maybe 3%, but you are telling the bank that they can have that money. They get to keep the money for at least a certain amount of time. Okay, whereas a savings account, you can take it out at any time you want. If you put it in a CD or a bond or whatever, you have to wait X amount of years before you ever get it back. So it's safe, but you don't earn that much interest. Stock markets aren't necessarily safe, but you usually get a better return. Depends on what kind of person you are. Lucas,
What if a bank gets robbed?
your money is still insured. You will still get your money back. That's the government. Our government, one of the things they do is make sure that people won't lose their money as long as the bank is insured that way. Nick,
Is investing in a business the same thing as the stock markets?
well, if the business is in the stock market, if it's a publicly traded entity, which means you can go there and buy stuff. Otherwise, I think businesses, you can personally invest in them. I mean, you could just go to the business and say, I mean, they might, I don't know much about the whole business end of things. Emma Haynes?
Or, so how does, you know the Gerber thing where you put money in it and then your kids older and they get it?
Oh yeah, I've seen the commercials on that, and that's kind of a little like the same thing as, like putting it, it's really the same as putting it in a bank, where you're gonna get X amount percentage every year or whatever for it. And that's where we're going right now. Nick?
Well, I have stock right now because when
Good
I
for
was
you.
born, my grandma bought it for me.
Mhm.
And then she was like regretting that she bought my two sisters Disney World because that stock's kind of doing bad. And I got Harley Davidson, and apparently that's doing good.
Well, and you can look and see, everything went bad there. It's gone up and it goes down. I mean, so much of it is when you put it in, when you take it out. Now, here is what we need to know for today, and I'm about done. Okay, interest, write down this little formula. Oh, by the way, write on top simple interest. Simple interest is this formula. I equals P R T. And what that means is this: interest equals principal. I think this principal is PAL as well. Is it money principal the same as principal in a thing? We're not talking about your principles as in values. Is it PLE? Doesn't it say on your, it says on your thing there somewhere, doesn't it?
It says P equals
It's
I.
PLE?
No, but like on our sheet or whatever, it says P equals IR.
Yeah, no, just write this down. I equals PR. R equals rate, and T equals time. Yeah, I'll have to look at that one. Principal equals interest. This thing is wrong. Somehow they're mixed up there. In other words, this. The interest you earn, is it PLE, by the way? Somebody said it was PLE?
Yeah.
Alright, let's go with that. Okay, first of all, what is the principal? Principal is the amount of money that you put in the bank. Or the amount you borrow. If you're talking about a loan, the principal is how much you had to borrow. If you're talking about getting interest from a bank, it's how much you put in the bank. A rate is the percentage that you are getting. We talked about that. And obviously time is how long. And this is usually in years. Okay. And we'll just do one example. Let's say that Sam put $10,000 in a savings account at, I don't know, 2% simple interest for 8 years. How much interest will he get? And what will be his balance after 8 years? And that's a pretty simple little formula. If you stick it in the I equals PRT, the interest, the amount of money he is going to make equals what was his principal? He put $10,000 in. What was his rate? 2%, which you change to a decimal by doing what, Jeremy? 0.02, and his time is 8 years. So if you do all the calculating here, multiply this out, 10,000 times 0.02 is, well, what is 10,000, 0.02, 0.00002, he makes 200, these two multiply to give you 200, and then you take 200 times 8, he makes $1,600 in interest. Now please note, that's not how much he has in the bank, that was the second question. That's how much he made in interest. That's how much was given to him for being allowed to hold on to those $10,000. Okay? How much, what's his balance after 8 years? Well, he still has the $10,000 plus the $1,600 he made in interest. He gets, in the bank, he'll have $11,600. That's part B. So those are your two answers. Make $1,600 in interest. In the bank, he has $11,600. You kind of catch that? I don't know what that piece of paper was saying with the P equals IRT, because that wouldn't. Oh, well, P principal equals the interest times the rate times the time. See, if you had this formula, I equals PRT, what actually would the principal equal? Here's a little math question for you. How do I solve this for the letter P? Anybody? John? Well, if I divide by P, then I'm going to end up with I over P over here. I want to get P by itself, so I need to get rid of these two, which means I would, it's multiplication, so I would divide by R and T. Principal actually equals the interest divided by rate times the time. This actually is what principal would be. if you're solving for P. So I'm gonna have to look into this little sheet here. Never believe everything you get from the internet. I liked it because it had something I wanted us to do, and we'll do that tomorrow, but